No intro, let's get right into it. For my Christmas special, I chose to cover a figure that put me in a jolly spirit. That figure is the Magic Square MS-02B Dark Lord. I waited a long time to get this figure, and now that I've had it for a few months, I feel I'm finally ready to share my thoughts on it. Minor spoiler, this thing is great, but it's not without its flaws. Starting in the alt mode, I would say 50% of this figure is downright perfect. Like I physically could not ask for more. 40% is pretty alright, but doesn't exactly blow my socks off. And the last 10% almost ruins this mode entirely for me. Let's start with the first 50%. The front half of this truck is fantastic. First, it hides the fact that it transforms at all really well. All the proportions look right, and all the seams are expertly hidden. The fact that this is made of molded black plastic does help. The little details only further elevate this thing though. The detail I immediately noticed when I first transformed him was all the chrome on him. Now I could be mistaken, but all the chrome pieces feel like die-cast metal, but that could just be a type of coating. Regardless, the contrast between the chrome and the silvers make a big difference. Other than the silver, the only other painted detail that we can see are the teal lights on the top. Great color choice and very well painted. The next detail that caught my eye was the red windows. Again, a beautiful choice of color, and the transparency is just right, but that's more obvious in the robot mode. A slight annoyance, however, is that this figure came with all these scratches. Not a huge deal or anything, but a real bummer. On the bright side, the windows on the doors look good, but the doors themselves have a cute little secret. They can both open. There's no molded interior, but I'd rather that than compromise the transformation or the robot mode. Some other great details are the molded and somewhat painted shocks, the very nicely molded hubcaps, and the rubber wheels. These two up front spin just fine, but that leads us on to the back half of this alt mode. Let's put a pin in the wheels for a moment. The trailer half looks fine. Doesn't look bad, but compared to the first half, it is lacking a bit. With that said, it still has its pros, such as the rear molded and painted taillights. The back half, and really the mode as a whole, holds together really well. Lastly, it comes with two different types of trailer hitches, one for MP10 and one for MP44. A little bit of parts forming, but who really cares? Unfortunately, we do have to come back to those wheels. While they look and feel good, due to some tolerance issues with my figure, it doesn't quite transform correctly. This leads to the wheels being held in place by the bottom panels. Also, due to these tolerance issues, I don't feel comfortable leaving this figure in its vehicle mode for too long, out of a concern that the plastic will deform, or possibly break from the unneeded stress. And that sucks a lot, because I like to display my figures in both the robot and alt mode, and I really like how the alt mode looks. To end on a more positive note, as someone who doesn't collect masterpiece style figures too often, I find this thing is huge, almost unwieldy so, but let's see if the size comparisons help to put that into perspective. For size comparison, we have Bumblebee, Red Alert, Optimus Prime, my last review, Age of the Primes Micronus, and my only actual MP figure, MP20 Wheeljack. While I do really like this mode overall, for my copy at least, it's basically just a gimmick. I usually transform it, think it looks cool, then I transform it back to prevent long-term damage. Although I will concede for a good majority of people, this point is kind of moot because most display all their figures in robot mode anyway. If I'm wrong on that, let me know in the comments. I gotta engage bait a little bit here. Let's move on to the bit I really dread filming, the transformation. Most of my problems with the transformation can be boiled down to three things. The back half, but there's a few moments in the chassis where parts don't quite have enough room to move past one another, so I have to slightly flex the plastic to give it the room it needs. That's bad enough on its own, but the plastic is a bit thinner and cheaper than I would like. Now, I should clarify, it doesn't feel cheap, just cheaper than I'd like. And I believe some of the pieces have to be as thin as they are for the transformation, but it still sucks. The last issue I run into is not that bad, and unfortunately not that uncommon. Some of the tightest parts of the transformation are also the parts with painted silver parts. Luckily, the paint is actually fairly chip resistant, but not immune. With all that said, I'd like to give this figure its flowers. The engineering involved here is really impressive. And I would also like to clarify, overall, the transformation isn't actually that bad, just a few hiccups. When it comes to the robot mode, my only real issue is just how big it is. I had to change how I film my videos just to get this guy to fit into frame. Good thing I did, because I want to appreciate every inch of this guy. This guy stands about 9.5 inches tall and weighs just under 12 ounces. Let's start with what I think is the most obvious. This is not your traditional red, white, and blue Optimus Prime. This is based off of Nemesis Prime, Optimus Prime's evil clone. Why did I get this version? To be frank, I didn't want another G1 Optimus, and I already had a Shattered Glass Optimus. Now that I think about it, this is the second evil third-party Optimus Prime I've reviewed. If I had a nickel for every unfunny cunt that's run this joke into the ground, I would have $342, which isn't all that much money in the grand scheme of things, but that's a fuck ton of nickels. Back to the colors. As I mentioned earlier, all the black parts are just molded black plastic, but we get to see way more painted pieces. That mainly being all the silvers and teals. Both look and feel pretty good. There's the faintest bit of chipping from transforming him, mainly on the silvers on the chest. I would describe the paint quality on par, maybe a tad less durable than SS86, but better than something like Iron General. Another painted part I'd like to look at is his head, and while the paint looks good, the eyes are a little sloppy. The head sculpt itself is one of the very few things that I think 86 did better than this guy. It's a bit flat and rectangular for my taste, and while he comes with a separate head, I think it looks even worse. The eyes are just a little too far apart and far back into his head. It makes him look like the Joe Rogan word. You know the one. Otherwise, this figure is nearly flawless when it comes to its design. The only other nitpick I have is that the backpack is a little too small of all things. But I'd rather have this than MP44. Gross. Seriously though, this guy looks perfect. Like it shouldn't be possible for him to transform perfect. And that's impressive as is. But he's not just a statue. This guy can pose. I think this might be the most posable Transformer I have. Hell, it gives some of my non-transforming figures a run for their money. This guy can pose so well that every now and then I'm a little disappointed it can't pull off some outrageous pose I've come up with, only to realize that most figures couldn't even get half as close as he can. And it's not just the outrageous stuff. He does subtle really well too. For example, here's a super simple standing pose. Now here's that same pose on 86. And while it doesn't look that bad on 86, Dark Lord makes it look so much better. Other than all the double joints and butterfly joints, I think the hands do a lot to allow him to express himself. They are a little big for this figure, and while I think it looks good, I could see that bothering people. These hands are also a great example of the tolerance issue I initially had with this guy. When you get this figure, do not just take it out of the box and start posing it. Set aside about 10 minutes using some lube and floor polish to get all the joints just right. For example, his fingers were a real pain to move, and I consistently felt like I was going to break them. So I put a little D-Star lube into each ball joint, and ever since, the figures have actually become one of my favorite parts about this figure. Normally I save this bit for last, but let's go ahead and see the posability. This is some of the most fun I've had just screwing with a figure, but I've yet to even talk about his accessories. Let's start with the chest. If we open it up, we get one of my favorite matrix chambers yet. Not super complicated, but just detailed enough not to be boring. We can open that up to get a pretty okay evil matrix. Nothing great, nothing terrible. Feels like die-cast metal. It is a real pain to get out of his chest though. After all my praises, the matrix chamber is really the only part of this figure that actually feels cheap. Nothing here really plugs into place, so it all just wiggles around in there. This really stands out when you consider the fact that the rest of this figure feels nice and sturdy. Alright, let's be positive and talk about the energy axe. To get him to hold it, you just need to take the top off and fold up his hand like so, slide this piece into his palm, and put the top back on. Super simple, but still looks really good. It's a nice size, and it's made of hard plastic, so it'll actually stay straight. His next weapon is his ion blaster. This one just plugs into his palms, great size, and wonderfully detailed. But I wish there was a little bit more paint to show off these molded details. Also, something I didn't realize for the longest time is that the tip of the barrel can come off, so that you can insert an LED, not included. His last and certainly least accessory is a card. I don't got much more to add to that. Let's go to size comparisons. Bumblebee, Red Alert, Optimus Prime, Micronus, Wheeljack. My final thoughts? This figure is almost perfect. If it weren't for the issues I had with the alt mode, this would be like a 9.5 out of 10. Even so, I would highly recommend this figure, especially considering the fact that SS86 can cost anywhere from $80 to $100 depending on where you get it. This figure only costs $106. I like this figure so much, and with all the recent pictures Hasbro's been releasing, makes me want to get the Magic Square Combat Vehicle team. That is out of my price range though. Today's fact from Are You Shitting Me? 1004 Facts That'll Scare the Crap Out of You. Fact 222. A traditional favorite in Greenland, kveik, is made by stuffing the carcass of a seal with dead birds and burying it in the spring or summer. At Christmas, the fermented meat is dug up so holiday revelers can bite off the bird's head and suck out the jellied guts. And here at the very end, I'd like to take a moment to say I appreciate those who have checked out my videos and my channel, and I hope to get even better in the upcoming year. But I'd like to know what you guys would like to see more of. Should I do more third-party figures, non-transforming figures, or make some non-figure related content? I could try that Ben 10 video again. I would also like to know what you guys do and don't like in my videos so that I can improve. Lastly, I was trying to upload something every week to every other week, but that kind of took the fun out of it, so I still need to figure out what I'm doing there. Thanks, and Merry Holidays and Happy Christmas.